again, Lala, I have so much respect for you, but I think you're missing the obvious answer. What politician is going to put into law a rule that says if a politician does something wrong, they could lose their job? Like, who would do that?
Well, it's amazing what happens when the feeling, the sentiment is going to garner them some, I mean, think about what's going on right now with Gordon Campbell and this carbon tax, just to digress a little bit, right? They've got the good old PR spin machine going on this thing 24/7. I'll guarantee you, because it is not looking good and people are getting a little bit more angry. And I think they're hoping that that will die down, and maybe it will or maybe it won't. But we're looking at an election year here. We're looking at a city that has a mayor who was convicted of assault to lead them. This is a mayor who is also in charge of granting money to places like homeless shelters. He is in charge of granting money to places like women's shelters, battered women's resource centers. What is that about? What battered women's resource center wants to go to a man in front of council who has been convicted of assaulting a former girlfriend and ask him for money? And should anybody in that position even have to do that? How ironic is that? Give me a break. This just, Gordon Campbell, his crew, they need to really step up on this one and just say, you know what? Yeah, we don't want to. But I mean, this is coming. He is the guy that was drinking in Hawaii. So the king of apologies there. Maybe that's all Scott thinks he has to do is just stand on the steps and show a little remorse. But you know what? He didn't show remorse in that statement. In fact, if you ask me, he looks pretty darn smug.
So let me ask you this. I mean, is it just you and me that are kind of looking at this, scratching your heads, going, "What the hell? What is happening? What takes place? What can be done?" Do we have a chance, you and I, Lala, of making any kind of change here, or are we just going to have to keep reporting on these useless politicians, their useless stories, and their useless lives, where they just end up falling down and failing, and we have to pick up the pieces and write about everyone's disappointment? Or do you think there's a chance that maybe there's a growing movement out there now that will work for some sort of proactive change?
I hope there is. I mean, people call me a dreamer for a lot of different reasons, but I like to think that people are getting to the point, they're getting stretched to a point, they're getting pushed to a point where there is no other recourse but to stand up and say enough is enough. That being said, I hear a lot of people whine and complain, and then those are the same people who don't actually make it to the polls on voting day.
Yes.
It speaks volumes. Like, voting is something that people fought for, the right to vote, and yet we take it so lightly. And people complain all year long about our government this and our government that, but did they actually go and vote? When you think about how many people actually determine who the leader of a city is or a province, you see the percentage of the population that actually made it to the polls. I think in Surrey, in my municipality, somebody told me a statistic once that it was like 30%.
Yeah, it's usually like 25% or something. Yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness to those who don't vote, because I was one of them for a long time. I mean, does it matter? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, aren't we just going to get this guy again? If it's not Scott Young, it's going to be some other guy who's going to screw up and do something wrong and embarrass us. I mean, really, does it make a difference here?
Well, maybe it comes down to like people like you and I should start thinking about running for council. I know a lot of I do. I know a lot of councillors. I spoke to a couple of the councillors in Port Coquitlam, and I sensed a real sense of frustration for them. This has been very hard, and I have two things to say about that council. Is one, this could have been done. This whole how do we get Scott Young out of the office and how do we get him to be mayor could have been handled long ago. If you remember, there was a time when he had missed 3 council meetings, I believe it was.
Yep.
And they were waiting to see, and it was in the press, is he going to show up for the 4th? Because if you miss 4 council meetings, then you're out, right?
Yep.
Well, what they could have done, and this was remarked to me by a councillor, is that I said, why did you guys show up? Why did you show up for the 4th meeting? You could have walked out, the council meeting would not have occurred, and he would have missed 4 council meetings, and he could have been gone. And, part of the question was, there was a big silence on the other end of the phone. And it became, well, we really just, we just didn't know what to do. We were just tired of the whole thing, and we just were hoping that he would step down. And then part of it was, is that I think in a situation like that, the dynamics of the people working together in council were very tense at that time.
Yeah.
And everybody was trying to hope that, maybe the charges will be dropped, maybe those will just all go away, we won't have to deal with it, but unfortunately didn't. Looking back, I think, I'm hoping that they wish that they had walked out. I'm hoping that they would have thought to do things differently, because now they still have to go forward in the fall with this horrible working situation, which I really can't imagine is, really great. So.
No, absolutely not. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens to the election, Laila. Who knows what's going to happen? There are rumors that Scott Young may, even under house arrest and with a curfew and this conditional sentence hanging above him, he might even want to run again for mayor.
Well, he has some wealthy friends who have a lot of money, so he may have, be able to handle the financial cost of a new campaign. Interestingly enough, though, I believe is he not still a pressman for another company? He was working night shift there. Apparently, if he's under curfew, he's not going to be able to work as a pressman at night. So, that may be a bit of a financial problem for him.
It's tough all over.
If he really does run again, I can't say never, because look at him, he's really smug. And the funny thing is that my ex, to this day, if you ask him or anybody talks to him, he says that I'm the one who's crazy, and I made it all up, and it never really happened, and he never was an abusive spouse. So I don't know if there's some sort of psychological thing that goes on there.
The scary part about it is, Laila, is I think you are crazy, because you actually think people should vote and work for proactive change, and you think the criminals should be held accountable for committing crimes. Do they come any crazier than you?
Well, yeah. Unless it's you.